The Bermuda Triangle. This area, often described as a rough triangle bounded by Miami, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico, has been at the center of maritime and aviation legend for decades. According to popular belief, ships and planes have vanished here without a trace, sometimes in calm weather, sometimes leaving no debris, no distress signal, nothing at all. Stories began to circulate in the mid-20th century, gaining traction in 1964 when author Vincent Gaddis coined the term Bermuda Triangle in a magazine article and later expanded on it in a book. Then came Charles Berlitz, whose 1974 bestseller, simply titled The Bermuda Triangle, catapulted the region into pop culture. Berlitz was a skilled storyteller and an enthusiast for the paranormal, and he connected the area to theories involving Atlantis, UFOs, time warps, and mysterious energy fields. People were captivated. Books, documentaries, and even Hollywood films played up the enigma. One of the most well-known cases is that of Flight 19, a group of 5 U.S. Navy bombers on a training mission in December 1945. The planes became disoriented and lost radio contact, eventually disappearing along with a search plane sent to find them. Then there's the USS Cyclops, a massive Navy cargo ship that vanished with 309 people aboard in 1918 without a trace and without distress. No wreckage was ever found. These stories seem to point to something abnormal, even sinister, about this region of the Atlantic. But when researchers started to dig into the facts, things got less mysterious. Larry Cush, a librarian and author, reviewed records, logs, and weather reports, and found that many of the so-called unexplained disappearances were anything but. Flight 19's pilots were flying in deteriorating weather and likely became lost due to navigational errors, possibly compounded by malfunctioning instruments. The Navy's official report pointed to causes unknown, but subsequent analyses leaned toward a more conventional explanation. As for the Cyclops, it was heavily loaded with manganese or may have had mechanical issues and was sailing through stormy seas. In other words, it was at risk before it even entered the triangle. Moreover, the region is among the most heavily traveled shipping and aviation routes in the world. Statistically, incidents there aren't more frequent than in other comparable areas. In fact, the U.S. Coast Guard and NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, have both issued statements saying there's nothing particularly unusual about the area. Weather patterns, human error, mechanical failure, and navigational issues explain most of the incidents. Some scientists have also speculated about methane hydrates on the seafloor, releasing gas that could lower the density of the water and sink ships. But this theory, while interesting, hasn't been definitively linked to any specific disappearance. So how did this legend grow so large? A mix of media amplification, incomplete records, and the human tendency to find patterns in chaos. For decades, the Bermuda Triangle was the perfect storm of curiosity and fear. But over time, as investigations piled up and data became more available, the mystique has faded. It's still a popular subject for books and YouTube videos. Of course, but today, the scientific consensus is pretty clear. The Bermuda Triangle is not a mystery. It's an area with weather, traffic, and occasional accidents, just like anywhere else. Now, if the Bermuda Triangle is the Atlantic's mystery zone, then the Pacific has its own version, the Dragon's Triangle, also known as the Devil's Sea, located off the coast of Japan, roughly between Tokyo and the island of Guam. This area has been surrounded by tales of ghost ships, disappearing vessels, and strange underwater phenomena. The origins of the name Dragon's Triangle trace back to ancient Chinese and Japanese myths. In early Chinese lore, the sea was said to be the domain of a dragon that pulled ships under the waves. Japanese legends included similar creatures and warned of unpredictable waters in this part of the Pacific. One of the most cited stories from the Dragon's Triangle involves the disappearance of the Kaiyomaru no Wo, a Japanese research vessel investigating underwater volcanic activity, near the island of Myojinsho in 1952. The ship vanished along with all 31 crew members. Charles Berlitz once again played a role in popularizing the mystery in Western audiences. He expanded his Bermuda Triangle ideas into the Pacific, claiming that this region mirrored the same kind of paranormal patterns. He even speculated that the two zones were connected by some kind of global energy grid or dimensional rift. Berlitz's writing style was compelling, but as with his other work, light on sourcing, in reality, the Kaiyomaru no 5 tragedy had a well-documented cause. The ship was conducting observations on an undersea volcano that unexpectedly erupted, sending a column of debris and water sky-high, and likely sinking the vessel instantly. The Japanese government eventually placed a 10 nautical mile exclusion zone around the area due to the risk of further eruptions. Geologists later confirmed that the Izubonin volcanic arc, where this occurred, is one of the most geologically active regions in the world, prone to sudden seismic and volcanic activity, like the Bermuda Triangle. The Dragon's Triangle has its fair share of lost vessels. But again, most are explained by storms, mechanical issues, or the treacherous undersea terrain. Japan's coast is notorious for typhoons, rapid weather changes, and strong ocean currents. Add to that the volcanic seabed, and it's easy to see why disasters happen there. Still, myths persist, especially in pop culture and online forums. The idea of a parallel to the Bermuda Triangle on the other side of the globe is too appealing for some to let go. From the warm Pacific, we move north to one of the harshest and most unforgiving environments on the planet, the Alaska Triangle. If you draw lines from Anchorage to Juneau to Barrow and back, you roughly outline a region that's been linked to hundreds of disappearances, both human and mechanical. Alaska as a whole has the highest per capita rate of missing persons in the United States. Some locals and storytellers suggest that this is due to unusual forces, energy vortices, magnetic anomalies, alien abductions, and even mythical creatures like the Kushtaka, a shape-shifting otter-like being from Tlingit folklore. Modern fascination with the Alaska Triangle spiked after the 1972 disappearance of Congressman Nick Begich and House Majority Leader Haley Boggs. They vanished while flying a small plane from Anchorage to Juneau, despite one of the most extensive search operations in U.S. history. Lasting 39 days and involving the military, no trace of the plane or its passengers was ever found. That incident lit a fire under conspiracy theorists who speculated about government involvement, Cold War espionage, and all manner of other plots. It didn't help that the region is vast and inaccessible, making thorough investigation nearly impossible. But again, experts point to Alaska's extreme environment as the likely culprit behind many of these incidents. The landscape is brutally rugged, towering mountains, deep forests, expansive glaciers, and extreme weather that can change in minutes. In the winter months, the darkness and cold are lethal. People get lost, fall into crevasses, crash in remote areas, and often cannot be found. The triangle is more a product of statistical accumulation than paranormal design. As one outdoorsman put it, Alaska doesn't need anything supernatural to kill you. Nature's already got that covered, and yet the mystery remains appealing. Shows like the Alaska Triangle on History Channel have reignited interest, blending real disappearances with speculation about time portals and extraterrestrial activity. But among professionals, search and rescue teams, geologists, and weather experts, the explanations are far more grounded. Still, it's a region where stories thrive. In part because it's so remote that definitive answers are often impossible to get. The term Bridgewater Triangle was coined by cryptozoologist Loren Coleman in the 1970s, and it refers to a roughly 200-square-mile area encompassing towns like Rehoboth, Freetown, and, of course, Bridgewater. This region is steeped in centuries-old Native American history, colonial strife, and reports of paranormal activity. At its heart lies the Hockomock Swamp, whose name means place where spirits dwell in Algonquin. That phrase alone sets the tone for what people have claimed to witness there: ghostly apparitions, glowing orbs, UFOs, Thunderbird, massive bird-like creatures, and even Bigfoot-like humanoids roaming the woods. There are also long-standing tales of satanic rituals, cult activity, and unexplainable murders within the Freetown 4 River State Forest. Now, if this all sounds like the makings of a horror movie, that's not far off. The Bridgewater Triangle has been the subject of numerous documentaries, books, and YouTube explorations over the years. Part of what gives it staying power is the density of reported phenomena. Unlike the Bermuda or Alaska triangles, which span thousands of miles and often involve vanishings, the Bridgewater Triangle deals more with visual phenomena and strange occurrences on land, floating lights, phantom animals, and unsettling encounters. Skeptics have, of course, weighed in. Most scientists and local historians point to a mix of misidentified wildlife, natural swamp gases, and human psychology, especially in dense forests where isolation can heighten the senses and amplify fear. Some of the most chilling stories, like mutilated animals and ritualistic crime scenes, turn out to be rooted not in the supernatural but in human wrongdoing. Freetown police files from the 1980s include investigations into real cult activity and violent crimes. So, while the legends may be exaggerated, they're often anchored in very real, very grim events. Public interest in the Bridgewater Triangle has stayed relatively local, but it's growing thanks to online media. What makes it unique is that it offers a concentrated dose of folklore, essentially New England's version of a paranormal zone. It's not a place where things vanish into thin air, but rather a patch of land where myths, crimes, and psychology intersect in a way that keeps people talking. Now we head inland to the Great Lakes region for the story of the Lake Michigan Triangle. This triangle is roughly formed by connecting Ludington, Michigan, Benton Harbor, Michigan, and Manitowoc, Wisconsin. Though not as internationally known, it has its own catalogue of eerie tales: vanishing ships, downed aircraft, mysterious lights, and a few truly head-scratching incidents. One of the earliest and most baffling stories tied to this region is the disappearance of the French ship Le Griffin in 1679. It was among the first European ships to sail the Great Lakes. And after departing Green Bay loaded with furs, it simply vanished, with no survivors, no wreckage, and no confirmed sightings ever since. Centuries later, in 1950, Northwest Orient Airlines Flight 2501 was flying over Lake Michigan when it disappeared from radar during a routine flight from New York to Seattle. At the time, it was the deadliest commercial airliner crash in U.S. history. Debris was found in the lake, but the plane's main fuselage and black box were never recovered. These and other incidents have led to rumors of everything from energy vortices to underwater alien bases. Some divers even claim that a Stonehenge-like formation lies beneath the lake's surface, though no scientific documentation confirms it's anything more than oddly shaped rocks. Stories of UFOs zipping above the water's surface have also become part of the lore, especially following the 1994 mass sighting near Holland, Michigan, where dozens of people, including police officers, reported strange lights moving erratically in the sky. But the Great Lakes are treacherous. Experts remind us that Lake Michigan, like the others in the chain, has its own unique weather patterns that can turn deadly fast. Sudden squalls, thick fog, rogue waves, and shifting magnetic fields can easily confuse even experienced navigators. In fact, compass anomalies are well documented on the lake. Add to that the sheer number of vessels. Thousands have crossed these waters for centuries, and the occasional disappearance isn't exactly shocking. The Michigan Shipwreck Research Association has documented over 1,500 shipwrecks in Lake Michigan alone, many of which were the result of storms or navigational errors. In short, while the stories are compelling, they're not necessarily evidence of a supernatural triangle. What's happening here is likely a mix of dangerous conditions, heavy use, and our innate fascination with unexplained disappearances. Still, the Lake Michigan Triangle endures in local folklore and attracts curious minds from around the world. And finally, we arrive at the Bennington Triangle, tucked away in the Green Mountains of southwestern Vermont. This area isn't marked on any official maps, but its reputation is just as haunting as the others we've explored. The triangle is centered on Glastonbury Mountain, an area that was once home to small logging towns that eventually became ghost towns. Between 1945 and 1950, 5 people vanished in or around this region. Each case strange in its own way, and none ever fully solved. The most famous of these cases is that of Paula Weldon, an 18-year-old college student who went hiking on the Long Trail in 1946 and was never seen again. A massive search was launched, but no trace of her was ever found. Her disappearance was so high profile that it directly led to the creation of the Vermont State Police. Another case involved an experienced hunter, Middy Rivers, who vanished while leading a hunting party. He walked ahead of the group and was never seen again. The others include a woman whose body was later found, but under circumstances that raised more questions than answers, and a young boy who disappeared within shouting distance of his family. Local lore around Glastonbury Mountain goes back much further. Native American stories describe it as a cursed place, an area to be avoided. They spoke of strange winds that would change direction without warning and a stone that would swallow anyone who stepped on it. Over the years, rumors have emerged about Bigfoot sightings, UFO activity, and energy anomalies. Skeptics again point to the environment. The terrain is rugged and the weather unpredictable. The area was largely unpopulated even during the logging days, making it easy for someone to get lost or injured without ever being found. Bears and other predators roam the woods, and many parts of the trail network are poorly marked or eroded. When Larry Southerden, a man missing since the 1970s, was identified by DNA in the 2000s, it was determined he'd likely been killed by a bear. The problem isn't the supernatural, it's that search conditions in places like this are brutally difficult. That said, the string of disappearances, all in a small time frame and in roughly the same area, has kept the legend alive. The term Bennington Triangle was coined by author Joseph Citro, and the name stuck. It's become a favorite among New England ghost hunters and online mystery enthusiasts. But among locals, it's more a piece of regional folklore than a cause for fear. So, what ties all these triangles together? It's not just the geography, it's the human impulse to find meaning in the unexplained. We want patterns. We want reasons when people vanish or strange things happen. And when no clear explanation presents itself, we turn to stories. Sometimes those stories involve aliens. Other times ancient curses, or wormholes, or sea monsters. But when we look deeper, when we read the reports, follow the investigations, and talk to the experts, the mystery often fades into more familiar territory. Bad weather, human error, mechanical failure, isolation, and sometimes just plain bad luck. Still, there's something deeply compelling about these places. They represent a kind of modern mythology, maps not just of land and sea, but of human imagination. Whether it's the Bermuda Triangle's lost plains, the Dragon's Sea's volcanic perils, or the shadowy forests of Vermont, each region speaks to our fascination with the unknown. We might explain away the facts, but the stories remain. And maybe that's okay. Maybe part of being human is allowing a little room for mystery. Even if we know, deep down, that the truth is probably more ordinary than it seems.